Welcome. This is the Maturity Project. I'm your host, Sir Chad Ever Broshears Self, or Chad Ever Broshears Others. If you know, you know. Now, today's conversation is on the Maturity Project, is about challenges, how people take them on. As we're actually taught so much by our authorities, right? The society, parents, friends. Now you're told the 6 people you keep around you most are the people that you become, or that best describe who you are. Now, a couple ways of looking at it, but that you spend a lot of time with is because when you're around somebody, you start to think like they do in some degree, because they're encouraging you to see things from their perspective as you do for them, because of the connection or bond of being friends or acquaintances. But if you're spending that kind of time around 6 different people, you're likely very close friends, or at least close friends. You think like them and they think like you. You kind of synchronize your thinking. You'll always have the things that make you specifically different, right? Characteristics that don't really morph or mold very quickly, or sometimes they won't do it unless you put extreme effort into making them change. Like if you're conflict oriented, you're probably going to be consistently conflict oriented, even if you are consistently dealing with other people that either are conflict oriented, so they don't really beat you down from it and put you into submission. Practicing the process of being more conflict oriented is what's commonly happening. Or if you have people that you're conflict oriented and they're not, doesn't mean that you will not be friends. It's just it will have a stress value based on conflict in those moments when the conflict occurs, and or the potential that a conflict can occur. They may be a little more avoidant, but doesn't mean they'll dismiss you. It's the other variables, the other traits that we have that actually have depth and value that are actually changing as you spend time with somebody, synchronizing and thinking processes, and you contribute to each other. But what we don't do is, because what most people are wanting to do at this moment when they're listening to this is thinking that it's a hard change, like a very noticeable change. It's not. It's a soft change. It's something that is very uneasy. It's very challenging to notice it until you're not around that person or those people. And then when something occurs, you immediately and instantly think to how they would feel about this situation, or you have you're associating them in the moment when they're not around. That's because your traits that you're synchronizing on are becoming, that's a point of awareness for you. Now, it doesn't mean change those things, but it does mean be careful who you choose to spend your time with, because you have to understand your attachment to that person, and what they're doing to you is what you're doing to them, so that you can take it to a higher level of being responsible in life. If you want to be radically responsible, these are the thinking processes that you'll start to adopt. That's what I teach, is how to become radically responsible. It's one of the tenets and values that help you progress fairly quickly through the Maturity Project. Though I'm telling you that because when it comes to dealing with challenges, and you deal with challenges every single day, you're dealing with a significant amount of challenges. The thing is that you've already overcome so many of those at a different stage of your life that it's no longer perceived as a challenge. It's just tests. But your skill set it in a way that you're really effective at it. Just the fact of like being a baby born and you have to breathe on your own, and no longer are you being supported by the umbilical cord, right? That's a challenge initially, but it's an absolute requirement for surviving. You get so used to it, you don't notice it. Well, walking, that was a challenge at one point in time. You crawled, now is a challenge. So you've had all these steady progressions throughout your life that have gotten you to where you are now. Just speaking is a challenge. So I'm looking at things at a very fundamental and rudimentary level to really illustrate the fact that it gets more complex and complicated, but it all stays the same. They are challenges nonetheless. So you have these challenges that you become accustomed to. And then you have the new ones. And when those new ones show up, and they can show up because you have a pattern change in your life, and those patterns, predominantly it's going to be associated with a pattern change. And actually, I don't know if you can have it associated outside of that. But anyway, so a challenge happens. Something has changed in your familiarity with your environment. You may have a new bill that came in, and that new bill is, yeah, it's enough to make you go, I don't have it in my bank. I don't have it, and there's no way I'm going to get there. None. I cannot do this on my own. My next payday is after this bill is due. You realize that this thing is very important. So you have 3 different thinking models that you will have access to, and you will take on one of the models. It's just your choice about which one, but most of us don't realize it's our choice. We're just a victim of circumstances. Like, life is happening to that person and to these people that don't realize they have choices. So, so the challenges of avoidance, the avoidance method that occurs, is the most immature method in this entire process. It's a place that, it's a default place that's what a baby would do, right? Like a very small child would do, or whatever, because that's the maturity level of what happens when you create avoidance. Is you get away from something in the challenge, and you're just hoping that it goes away, hide under the sheets, if you will. The boogeyman's, coming out from underneath the bed, whatever the perceived challenge is. So the things about the challenge of avoidance is that it creates its own, which is you're never going to develop the skill sets necessary to overcome that challenge. You will forever deal with having avoidance as your method until you change this. And what avoidance does is it says, you know what, I just had to get away from, it's back again. Now, when it comes back, does not mean it is back in the way that it's the same or identical to the previous event. It's just back because your skill sets is to avoid it, which means you will never complete it. Somebody else might complete it, but that doesn't mean that, like, you marry somebody or you get somebody involved in your life that brings the skills necessary to complete it. You don't even realize you're avoiding it anymore because somebody else is doing it for you. The issue is now you've created a dependency on that person for those particular skills that you were refusing to develop on your own. So avoidance will lead to a cascading effect, because now you're going to create a bond with somebody that increases the desperation to be with them, which means that you're going to have more of an emotionally traumatic experience or turmoil in being around that person, because you're so attached to needing them in your life that you can't function at the level you're now becoming accustomed to, because that person's no longer bringing that into your life. So then you have everything else, that's all those skill set values you may bring on. If it's the finances, you may, at this moment or at this particular timeline that I'm talking about, you may have you went from an old Honda that you had a high interest rate on and all this stuff and whatever, and your income, that's pretty much all you can afford, is this older Honda with a lot of miles on it. Excuse me. Now, and then you got a Jaguar. Again, just creating some levels, and it's a brand new one, right? If your lifestyle has increased, you got a benefit because the person you're with is bringing a degree of maturity in business and finance that you are lacking in, because they have more of an abundance and accumulation of the outcome of their efforts and development and their skill sets, and that person is now propping up that part of your life. Well, you can get to the point where you don't even realize that person's attributing that much to you anymore. You just take it for granted, is what we usually say about it. And you can sit there and be like, oh, well, hell, I'm kind of, I don't think I need to deal with this X, Y, and Z, right? Because when you first do it, there's a lot of behaviors you'll accept. It's an exchange, it's a bartering, right? So somebody comes into your life and you start a relationship with them, and they've got the business and financial maturity that you don't. They increase your values in life, as far as your financial values in life and what you can afford and how you spend money and the kind of lavish lifestyle you have, or just a lifestyle in general that you have. And you get to that spot where you're like, hey man, I'm good. I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling good about everything. I'm in the place that I want to be in. Like that kind of like experience occurs. And then sorry, there's a concrete truck that was in the process of, they cut me off. So that person has, you in the beginning, you give them specific to behavior, right? They can do certain things, and you're like, you know what, it's okay, it's worth it. I can deal with this. I will deal with it, whatever. And you go into the it's all right phase. Oh yeah, whatever, I'll accept it because this person's bringing these specific things to my life. Well, as you get more and more comfortable with them, you may start to resent the fact that you accepted certain things and you're not going to do it anymore. And then you build into your own self-independence or level of independence. It doesn't mean necessarily you're creating stress and chaos in their life. It's just you're balancing yourself out a little bit more. Well, you get all of the other aspects that money will bring into your experience of living. And now you've got that level, you've raised the entire experience of life at that point that finance and business, or at least finance in this particular example, is capable of bringing to you. And you're just maturing in some places, and other places you're just kind of getting this thing in benefit. But you're avoiding developing the skills necessary to become independent on your own and be with the person because you want to be with them versus be with the person because you need them in your life in order to keep that lifestyle. Most common thing we got going on, it seems, in this country, it's a very high percentage of people have this relationship. So what happens is whenever, let's say, a divorce happens, well, the next thing is, I desperately need the money this person has, but I don't care as much about them. Does it sound like it's a good person, right? Does it sound like it's a person that cares for others, or does it sound like they're more narcissistic and self-centered and would take from others if they have the opportunity to? That's where we start qualifying good or bad person in a lot of ways. We look at the moral values that they conduct their lives by, and we judge them on that. So we can start saying this person is showing the undesirable attributes that we typically try to avoid. So then it's like, this person's in a survival mode. So they're surviving, and they have a survival mode for multiple different areas that they're willing to take on challenges in, because the other areas that got elevated is now, they're not avoidance models of thinking. The avoidance model is in the other two areas of maturity, which is finance and business. The business really is the bigger one, and then finance after that, typically, unless somebody else gives you money to invest, then you kind of, then it may be the business part. I'm sorry, the finance, but maybe the first part, whatever. But it's just not that the benefit is, the thing to look at here is the maturity is in those two categories predominantly. At least that's a focal point right now. So when they're avoiding, they won't develop there. They're avoiding that growth. This is the avoidance model. So if that person pulls themselves out of their life, no longer giving the business and money or the financial maturity aspects of propping this person up, now they're left in this experience of being desolate and destroyed, and just they're not going after developing those two areas. This is the very common. People don't pull themselves up by their bootstrap, because we're taught victim Olympics now instead of critical thinking. So move it into, so this is the avoidance model. But what happens here is that the person now has a lesser and undesirable experience of life because they've got to the good stuff, and now they're not at it anymore unless their courts or whatever force the other person to increase that person's livelihood and values in life. So, but that's the government getting involved. But this person is still avoiding. And this person is being robbed of their own growth. And fulfillment in life comes from the ability to overcome goals, to overcome challenges and achieve goals. It brings the significant value of life, right? Going on major trips in the world, Mount Everest, whatever, photos of it to prove you've been there, that kind of stuff. That gives you the fulfillment experience in life, because you're willing to take on challenges and develop your skills necessary to show that you're developed, and that be some of these life goals. So avoidance model will leave you with the consistent repeating of the immaturity, because it's not the event, it's the skill set that gets you there. So the challenge you're facing is actually not the event. The event is the marker, it's the check engine light. You got to look under the hood. And under the hood, you're going to find where your skill sets do not meet the environment's demands. So if you avoid, you will never adapt those. You just can't. The avoidance model is to avoid all things, including growth. Now you go into the survival model. The survival model is, I'm taking that freaking thing on because I got to pay that damn bill. And I'll figure out how to do this, and I'm going to do it. And then they go and they get a second job, or they sell something, or whatever it is. They do what's necessary to survive. And the survival model, you are successful in it, but the degree of success is very short term. Because when you do the survival model, since I've talked so much about the avoidance model is very similar to survival model, except what the survival model is, you're going to do it. You have more independence in this model. You're just going to have, so you go sell something. Oh, fantastic. You're helping a pawn shop or somebody else that wants something. And, you do the exchange and they get it. Whatever it is, whatever you're selling. But it's short term, right? I'm not saying you create a product that you go to the economy with and the economy gives you back money consistently. That's actually not the survival model. That's you could get that from it, but there's a little bit of thriving in that, but then you level off again. And there's just levels to this too. Like there's all kinds of stuff when it comes to the advancements of each one of these areas of thinking. But the thinking models. So when you're at that survival, you're not focused on tomorrow other than the bill. That's the focal point. I'm going to make that bill work. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get it paid no matter what. Survival model. You survive with the survival model. It's not horrible, but you survive. And you don't look for somebody else to save you without your effort being in place, right? Because somebody else gives you money in exchange for something. It's not them saving you, but it does save you. It's just your effort got you there versus avoiding it, and somebody else is like, oh my God, I feel so bad for you. Here's money. Avoidance can get you that. The survival model can get it too, but it's more of you have to be the prime mover in the survival model in the solution portion. Now, the challenge is out there. So here's the drawback to the survival model. You don't think about the skills that got you to the event. You don't think about your world skill sets and your personal skill sets about life that got you to the event. What you think about is going to pay that bill, get it paid. It's helpful, but it is a short-term benefit because it's the skill sets that cause the event. You just don't know it. Check engine light comes on. You open the hood and find it, or you cover it up, right? Or you get somebody else to do it, but you pay them for it, right? Or whatever, right? That's still in the survival model. You're still paying somebody to do something for you. You're dependent on them, but you have the resources necessary to achieve that. Survival model typically is not, you don't have the resources necessary to achieve it, but the avoidance model is that I don't have the resources to achieve this. I'm not even going to consider it. I just got to get away from it. So it's the avoidance model is the most cowardly of the three by far. The survival model is courageous enough to fix this moment. Now, it has plenty of drawbacks and it has its benefits. So now, the one that I choose personally to do is the thriving model. So the thriving model is, I've got my challenges. Here's the skills that I have navigating this life. I'm interacting with other people, making the money that I need to live the lifestyle that I want. You gotta be above survival with thriving, although you can have moments where you drop below what would trigger other people for survival, and that actually happens kind of often. But in the thriving model is you're not just trying to pay the bill tomorrow. You're now looking for, how did I get here in the first place? What do I know about how I got here? Not just the actions that got me here, but the thinking that got me to those actions. And what can I do to overcome this so that it doesn't happen again? So I am going to figure out how to fix this thing. And you may not necessarily know you're doing this, but what you're doing in the thriving model is you're actually going to address every skill set necessary to move the needle forward for you. And the thriving model, now it may not happen first action. It takes time to really get to the things that are necessary, but you're constantly looking for how to not get back wherever it is that you're trying to get past. Because it's not to avoid being there. It is to get there, to get past it, because you have more abundance and abilities to overcome those challenges. It's not all about money. Enough money, right? But then again, shit, you can have a bad gambling problem, go to the casino and be completely broke tomorrow, even if you have $400 million. Just physically, if you can get it there, you can lose it right then and there. Place a bet with that much money on it, but it's the skills necessary to regain that amount of money. That's what the thriving model is based on, is that you're looking for how to develop your skills in such a way that you're just going to overcome this level of challenges in the future, and you're going to overcome it in such a way that you notice it's happening. I mean, you kind of do. You're like, oh, it's going to cost me $40,000. Well, how did I get to that before this happened? This is what I'm after. That's the thinking model and thriving when you're in the model. You're thinking beyond the future. You're thinking about the ability to adapt to everything. You just don't necessarily know it. Your actions tell me that, though, because you're after the thing that gets you there. Then that's the skills. So no longer are you stuck with, this sucks, I'm never going to want to experience this again, and let me get the bill paid. You're not stuck with a repeating events that are based off of the skill sets, demands of the environment, and you just keep having this. You're going to have greater and you're going to have lesser challenges that come along from what you're currently dealing with, but it also depends on the size of the game you're playing in life, and then the game other people are playing, and then what genetics have to give us, right? The environment. People die, people get sick, people get old, they do all kinds of things that throw these new wrenches into the situation. But it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's got its own challenges, right? I don't want to lose anybody in my life. And I would always put that as a bad thing because I care and I don't want people to be gone from my, where I am, right? And I don't want to be gone. So of course we can say that's bad. But at the same time, if you look at a bigger picture, we have to cycle through life. It's an unfortunate thing about our species, and we're not eternal creatures in the physical sense anyway. We have to cycle through. And our goal in what we are after is experiences. So if you're in the thriving model, the new challenges that come into your life, because your challenges adapt, but they come with greater rewards, greater movement forward. But here's an interesting thing that I've noticed, is that sometimes you it's not really desensitize, you normalize into what you're dealing with. And you just look at it and say, oh, okay, it's just what I got to do. But you got skill sets that help you move forward in a way that you don't even recognize the challenges as you used to when you didn't have those skill sets well developed. Because then you had first time intervals, which is incredibly challenging. Time consuming, energy demanding, is overall resource demanding for first time intervals for a lot of people. But and that's always been my experience. But then again, comparing that to later on as you're more mature in that particular situation or the event's demands. So your challenges evolve, and they'll evolve into something bigger. The rewards be bigger. You've also gotten used to your rewards coming back to you in a specific quantity, if you will, or quality and quantity. You've gotten used to that in this particular situation. So that 5 years ago, let's say $40,000 seemed to be an impossible number. But at this stage, $40,000 is, okay, I'll write a check. Or go the other way. If you would have told yourself 5 years ago you were going to have $40,000 given to you in a single day, instead of paying the bill, somebody's paying you. And you're like, oh my God, that's more than I was going to make this year. And now 5 years later, from consistency and development and the thriving model, you're looking at it going, oh, okay, yeah, it's Friday. Okay, could be Tuesday. Doesn't have to be payday. I just got paid because you've thrived your way into a different lifestyle. So it is your decision. You're never going to get rid of challenges. They're always going to be there. It's how you handle and how you develop yourself to deal with them. So what do you want to come out of this? How do you want to experience things? Because you got to pick the model. It's up to you. Man, I'm not going to pick it for you. It's your job. But I can say this, is I'm going to tell you what I've done and how I got where I'm at, in hopes that one day it may help you. So that's what this is all about, man. I'm trying to give different perspectives, and I'm working on that because I do care. I care about the people I don't know. I care about the people that I do, and I want to see us all come together in a way that we can coexist without having to try to survive everywhere. Because right now, conflict that you see is typically people trying to survive. And that is tough, man, because there's plenty of people that are just good people, but they're in bad situations and circumstances. And if we don't do something ourselves to make a difference, what can we expect? You know, it's just going to leave us with the same damn thing constantly. And then it's going to be like, you know what? I'm the best at surviving. Just because you got $14 million in the bank and you're some rap god or whatever, your life is going to suck because you're constantly out to tell people you're fucking better than them. Because that's the surviving model when it matures too far. I'm better than you. Drop the heat on you. Yeah, when you hear the Glock click. Whatever the fucking stupid ass slang to turn everybody against each other. I'm a badass. Fantastic. You want to be the baddest crab in the bucket. Let everybody else pull you back down. You know, why do that? And you know what? You make the choices that you want in life, and you probably aren't ready to get out of the pressure cooker of life yet. You want to stay in that survival model and be the best person at surviving? Fantastic. Go ahead. Sit in your pressure cooker, man. But that's not where you're going to find me, and I don't associate with those people. And the reason why I don't associate with those people, now, if they're coming to me for help and they want guidance and all that, absolutely. I'm 100% in, and I will absolutely do everything I can to develop them in the process or give them insight so they develop themselves in the process. But if they're going to sit back and just show me that they're better than me every which way I turn, I'm not interested, man. You are going to live the life that you have, and my resources will not contribute to you. Anything out of the required actions that I have, that is it. It's no more resource sharing, because I will not give that much to somebody to fix them further in a destructive mindset. Hardship is necessary in order to break people from that. It's the hysteria that being overly egoic and narcissistically driven creates this hysteria that turns people into these monsters that'll just destroy you. But they started off in a place that somebody abandoned them and didn't give them the kind of guidance necessary, and I'm hoping to be that event horizon in their life. The shift that gets them from that destructive fucking model and pushes them and helps get them into the thrive. Because with thriving, others will survive, then they thrive too. You know, bring them up. So these are the three different thinking models. This is a major part of what I do, and why I do what I do is because I want to be able to give opportunities to other people and give them something that I can that will not enable them, and hope. It might, when I say hope, it's desire, not structure. I'm putting structure into this. It's the wrong choice of words, but for the people who haven't yet figured it out, because I don't have the structure and the practice to get them yet. But I'm working and living my life for that. And who knows what's going to happen in my future, but I'm really dedicating this for everyone else's. It's like Moses. You take them to the promised land, but you don't go there with them. You get them there, but yours is someplace else. You got to keep working on it. That's me in my world. I'm not comparing myself to Moses, but I guess it's a good analogy. All right. Well, that's it for today. I hope that this really does get to you for the people that I don't know how to get to yet. And for those that I do, I'm glad that you showed up today. I'm glad that you joined me and got to this point of the video. Share this video with somebody in your life that you want to help make a change with as well. Break the ice with them. Have a conversation that really nurtures your relationship in a way that moves both of you into the thriving opportunities and the thriving model. You'd be surprised how far you'll grow together if you just stop trying to survive by taking a little piece every time from each other. All right, till next time, I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some. If you know, you know. This is the Maturity Project. We got a lot to do. The world needs us. But we really got to work on ourselves first. It's the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And our society right now is taking a super highway there. All right, until next time. Let's get to it. See ya.